Joined by Nate Burleson right now. Nate, you spent a lot of time in Minnesota as an athlete, your brother as a coach. This has got to be extra hard to watch.
It's tough. It's tough. I talked to my brother, Kevin, who is on the coaching staff with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he was headed to the grocery store yesterday. And he said, I just got to be careful. I'm like, really? Is it that intense? He said, yeah, man, it's so intense. I can feel it in the air. And that's just somebody looking at the situation from a bird's eye view. Think about the family of.
But are there people that are angry on the other side? Is there anyone that's something other than outraged?
You know, I believe there is. Yeah. You know, Billy, I posted something on social media, and it was a side-by-side of Kaepernick taking a knee and a silent protest about police brutality, among other societal issues. And the cop who, in my opinion, flat out murdered George Floyd. And my post blew up. We're talking everything from, I agree with you, we need to have more empathy for situations like this, to, well, you know what? If he wasn't resisting, then this could have been avoided. Here's where I stand on it. One, I'm not posting things for you to agree with me. I'm not posting things for anybody other than the Black culture to say, well, you know what, Nate, I understand exactly what you're going through. Billy, I love you like a brother, and we go back, but I know that we live two different types of lives in America. But what makes us close is that we both have a profound understanding of our own experiences. That's why if as brothers, and I'm talking about humans on this earth, especially in the United States, if we could just identify with other people's past, we'll get along a lot better. I find it hard for somebody to rationalize, as I saw so many posts yesterday and so many comments and people saying, well, you know what, if you don't commit a crime, or if you don't have anything to hide, well, if you don't resist, here's the thing. You can't convince me that somebody handcuffed deserves to die. You can't convince me that somebody handcuffed on the ground deserves to die. You can't convince me that somebody handcuffed on the ground pleading for their life deserves to die. Of course, it's going to strike me because I'm Black and I see a Black man dying once again in the streets on camera, but I'm talking about a human life. And if you're trying to convince me otherwise, then I can't rock with you. I'm talking about as a human, because we don't see life.
People who are saying that are people who don't want to accept it. They can't accept that this possibly could happen. So we're going to have to explain our way around it or something, because that can't land on me. I'm not prepared to process that within me. That's what I talked to Gail King this morning, texting back and forth, and Gail said, and this right in line with what you're saying, I'm tired of it being a Black issue. It really should be a human issue. I really wish white people would be just as outraged and saddened and say so, because that man was a danger to no one at this point, no matter what you say. And there's bystanders. The police are around. There's other people. That's bystander abuse. That's what it's called. I mean, that makes it systemic.
It really does. And you're talking about 4 cops that are surrounding a man that's on the ground who's yelling, I can't breathe. So don't you have the situation controlled at that point? What's the worst he's going to do? Turn over and catch his breath? And here's the thing. For me being an African-American who played in Minnesota, who have felt the fear of being pulled over or questioned by a cop, I'm talking about that deep down, sweating, heart racing, stomach falls to the pit of my, and I have to control myself and say, Nate, you didn't do anything wrong, just relax. I know what it's like to be Black in America. I'm not asking anybody that isn't to identify with that like I do. But what I am asking is just have some understanding for life. Like, we're seeing lives being lost and taken, and we're just acting like it's normal news. And this is where I do agree when people say it's a human thing. It is a human thing. But when we see, I'm telling you what I see, Billy. When I see another story about a cop bursting into a house of a young Black man and shooting him, or strangling a guy on the street, all these people unarmed, nonviolent in the moment of their death, I feel like it's not human, because the cop who committed the crime don't necessarily see this Black man or this Black woman as human. And that's where it strikes me. And that doesn't even have to be racism. It could just be the simple fact that you have an innate fear. You don't have the same type of respect for somebody else's life. I'm not blanketing all cops. Every place that I've lived, every place that I've played in college, to Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, where I am in Jersey, how I worked in New York, I have made best friends. I'm talking about with men and women that protect and serve us. And these are my best friends. I just had one of my closest friends that's a cop here in Bergen County, New Jersey, over at my house on Memorial Day. And I give him hugs and kisses and I tell him, thank you for fighting a good fight. So when I say a cop is a bad guy with a badge, I'm not blanketing everybody. When you say a football player made a mistake, he's a bad guy, I'm not looking at you saying you're talking about me. I know I'm not the one you're talking about. So that's where this all gets caught in the gray area. I'm not blanketing anybody. I'm just saying there's some individuals that have a gun on their hip and they have power and they are enraged with that power and they wield it until lives are lost. And oftentimes we see Black lives lost in the street. And I'm just tired, man. I'm tired of crying. I'm tired.
I've been all over my phone this morning, but Michael Strahan sent this to me. I want to get your reaction. He said, the entire situation is just unbelievable. To see someone be so callous and smug when they are literally killing someone and act as if it's just what it is makes me so sick. And I feel like when I watch that, there's this moment where the guy goes like, whoo, and he just the some primal instinct thing just starts taking over, and he just becomes this animal, and he's not human, and George Floyd in front of him isn't human. It's very scary to see.
It really is. There's a moment where it's almost like his eyes gloss over and he's staring through.
People are saying, get up. I mean, he's not moving. Get up. Stop.
Like staring through the person recording him. And in that moment, I don't see a cop. I see a human that is taking the life of another human. And
in front of others and probably getting some kind of rise out of it or something. It's like, holy mackerel, you're wired. Who can be wired that way?
And I feel like it's deeper. It's systemic, and we're dealing with these social issues that are happening, and people are callous. I agree with Strahan, but I feel like at the very core of all of us, there is fear, there is some stereotype, there might even be some racism that was seeded in us by our parents or things that we have seen on TV. And if you have all those things rising inside of you, you shouldn't be the first one on the scene tackling a man to the ground that's handcuffed and having control. In that moment, having control of another man's life. I feel like there's individuals, just like in society, there's individuals that should not have guns or knives or should not have power. There should be people in position to delegate and say, you know what? You're not the one that we send to the urban community because you're reckless. And I know the way you think, and I've seen your post on Instagram, and I know the way you talk in the break room, and I understand how you view people of color. You're not the one I'm going to send to the urban part of Minneapolis or LA or New York because you can't handle those situations correctly. And matter of fact, we're going to review your file because we're not sure that you're competent enough to handle these situations. So we're either going to put you behind a desk or take away your badge or force you into retirement early. I just feel like there needs to be something within the system that helps these officers realize who they are. Put a mirror in front of them and say, who are you? Before we send you out into the world, put a mirror in front of them and then ask them who they are.
Do you think that police officers, the way they look, their face, their color should reflect the communities in which they live?
No, not at all. Because some of my best friends don't look like me that are police officers. And I mean, I
agree with you, by the way.
Yeah, I've been in situations where—
That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out.
Yeah. And I've been in situations that I have felt like the situation was getting out of hand, and a white police officer has walked up to me and said, "Hey, Nate, you shouldn't be here right now. I'm gonna take you out the back door, grab your wife and your friends." And then later on in that place, somebody holds it up or there's a shooting outside. And on the flip side, I have met cops of color that wield their power the wrong way. what makes these situations, I guess, so disheartening is that the ones that are caught on camera, as soon as you hear the story and you hear the name and you're like, damn, that sounds like a black guy that has died. And then you hear the story.
Yeah.
And the bad part is, I have to speak honestly, I automatically assume it's a white person. I automatically assume that it's a white cop that was murdering somebody. And here's the thing. I know you mentioned the word cop out. There's a way that people want to address this and rationalize it. And the first thing they say is, well, Nate, well, what about black on black crime? You know how dismissive it is to bring up black on black crime. We're talking about police officers that are here to protect and serve us. It's just like if somebody, you know, was murdered in your family, Billy, and I say, well, white people kill white people all the time, right? Why don't you have outrage about that? That has nothing to do with people that have a badge on. And the reason I get so emotional, I remember being a kid and an officer coming to my school and thinking that dude is a real life superhero. He cares about me like he cares about the Filipino girl. He cares about me like he cares about the white kid. He cares about me like he cares about everybody. And then as you get older, you realize there's certain officers that don't care about you the same. And when you talk about like being a kid, I got a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. The conversations I have with my kids are different than the ones you have with your kids, Billy. Like I got to talk to it shouldn't be normal for me to show this video to a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old and saying, hey, Nehemiah, hey, Nate, let's sit down for a second. Stop your homework. I want you to pay attention to this video because if you're ever in a situation where a cop is over aggressive, I want you to go limp first. And I want you to whisper to him that you can't breathe. And if you get louder, control your breath because I don't want you to run out of breath while your air is being compromised. Do you understand what I'm saying, son? You remember what I said about driving a car? Make sure you put your hands on 10 and 2 and you put your wallet and your ID. You don't talk back. You don't talk back. You sit back and you just hope that he lets you go. You don't have to reach for anything. Don't call me because if you reach for that phone, that could be perceived as reaching for a gun. I have these conversations with my kids, and I just never thought I'd have those. I never thought I'd have those.
What needs to be? I started thinking about, fixing things because I feel sick, right? And so I'm like, well, it should be mandatory that every police chief in every town and in every city, first of all, gets checked out themselves. And then if they're the right person, go in and find out who's who in your police force. Who's who? You know what somebody's made of and what they think. And you can even bait them into it. You can even say, what do you think about this guy over here? And bring them out. And when you know that they're bad apple, get rid of them. Serious things need to happen in that regard. And I wonder if they will. Do you have hope? Do you have confidence?
I do have hope because I have hope in humans. And I feel like the light in us will outshine the darkness. I know that there's so many good cops out there, and they come in every shade of color. They come in and what I'm seeing.
My heart breaks for the good cops who are looking at this going, oh, great. Thanks.
Here we go again.
I've dedicated my life and I'm a good person and this is what I get. Oh, you're a cop. Oh, yeah. I feel terribly for them too.
And what I have seen though, I've seen white cops, black cops, cops of all color come out recently over the last 48 hours, and they have spoke out against this, which I think we want to see more of that. Listen, death happens. Of course, we don't like it when it happens like this, but when this does happen, things that we want to see, very simple. One, if it is a clear-cut murder, which I think we all agree with, that man should be arrested. Forget about being fired. Be arrested. Deal with everything after that. I want you to try to rationalize it while he's behind bars, but don't tell the story about what happened while he's at home. And then second thing, I want cops to come out and speak, and they have been, and that's what I love because the cops that I see
come into schools too. I mean, let's get the cops back in there. Let's touch them. Let's feel them. Let's talk to them. Let's feel connected to them.
No doubt. And I'll tell you this, over the last 24 hours, I just thought to myself, I need to have a town hall of sorts where myself, the police officers that I do know, and I'm going to do sit downs and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to get deep and I'm going to try to allow people to understand what they go through and what they see when they go into different communities. And then also talk about what's going on behind the scenes when they deal with their own discrimination and stereotypes within the police department. So I think there needs to be more bridging of the gap. And I know there's a lot of players that are doing it. The NFL is heavily involved. But Billy, you're right. We need to get these cops back into these communities, talking to these kids, because cops were once viewed as superheroes, and majority of them are. I do believe there's a few villains that wear a badge, just like there's a few villains in the NFL, there's a few villains in media, there's a few villains in politics, there's a few villains in every walk of life. I just feel like more of the superheroes, put your cape on and show us who you are, because those are the ones that I have.
When you talked about being a kid and the cops coming in school and you looking at them in awe and thinking, you know, that's a superhero, it literally made me cry. Because that is just tragic that doesn't happen with every kid. You know, I got that experience. Of course, I used to look up to them. I wanted to be, kids want to be firemen. You want to be a policeman. You want to be these public servants, these law enforcement people. We got to get that back. We got to get, and everybody in it has got to be feeling that more than us.
No doubt, man.
Nate, thanks, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
God, what's on your hat? I can't see the picture, but is that George? Who is that? Colin?
This is a card. That's actually Colin Kaepernick. And it's just me paying homage to somebody that.
Isn't that amazing? This whole thing has come back around.
Yeah. He was looked at as a villain. And all he was saying was, there's some things going on that need to be addressed. And 4 years later, here we are again talking about the exact same thing. So listen, and here's the thing. I'm not asking you to agree with how Colin took a stance or decided to take a knee in a silent protest. I'm not asking you for that. All I'm asking is, if you have a heartbeat, just let that heart beat for a life lost. Because there was a point in our lives where when death happened, we all were saddened. If you're on the flip side trying to rationalize it, I think you're missing the point.
I'm hopeful that George Floyd is different and that his death is not in vain, and that there's a real change here. Anyone who watched that with their eyeballs and has a heartbeat, you know how you felt.
No doubt about it.
Thanks, man. Hey, have a great weekend. Long weekend with your family. You're a great man. Love you, bud. Thank you for watching. If you want more extra, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you'll never miss a video.